One of the biggest challenges when growing in private practice is hiring, onboarding, and when necessary, firing therapists. Why this matters: hiring the wrong person can cost you time and money. Onboarding needs clear systems to avoid chaos, and firing isn't fun, but having a structured process can protect your business. In this video, I'll break down how to hire the right therapist, how to onboard and train them efficiently, and when necessary, how to handle termination professionally. My name is Gabriela Lopez. Welcome back to my channel. I am a licensed therapist here in New Jersey, and I'm also the proud owner of Therapeutic Self-Care, a group practice where we provide quality mental health services and teach simple self-care practices to help keep your mental health a priority. Let's get started. As a business owner, before you start hiring, it's important to be clear on how you're going to set up this new hire, whether they're going to be a W-2 employee or a 1099 contractor. I'm going to discuss a little bit of both here so that you can have some clarity as to what works best for your practice. Let's start with W-2 employees. As an employer of a W-2 employee, you have more say and control over that employee's role and responsibilities, their schedule, their referrals, and much more. However, as an employer of an employee, you also have more responsibilities. Some of those responsibilities include paid sick time. So every 30 hours that that employee works, you are responsible to pay them 1 hour of sick time for them to use when their or a family member is ill. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is, as an employer of an employee, you have to also be paying employee taxes. In addition to that, you also have to be running payroll and ensuring that tax withholdings are being done through a system. The system we use is Gusto. Lastly, the Department of Labor informed us that if this employee is providing a service that your business already provides, such as counseling or therapy, then that employee needs to be set up as a W-2 employee and not a contractor. So keep those things in mind. Now, with 1099 contractors, it is quite different. You don't have as much control over their role and responsibilities, their schedules, referrals, or any of those things. But you're also not responsible to have those same benefit obligations. For example, you are not responsible to have tax withholdings taken out of their paychecks, or you don't have to pay employee taxes on contractors either. So it's something to keep in mind. With contractors, you do save a little bit money up front, but you do have less control and say over their job and position. Lastly, if they are set up as a contractor, they must meet the IRS and New Jersey criteria for them to be set up as a contractor. Typically, a contractor has their own business and they're contracted out with different businesses to do one specific thing. We do have a contractor here at our therapy practice who solely focuses on what's called a biopsychosocial assessment. He does not provide counseling or therapy at our practice. He simply does this one assessment for us. Therefore, he is able to be set up as a contractor, a 1099 contractor. Now that you understand how to set up your new hire, either as a W-2 employee or a 1099 contractor, let's talk a little bit about the different pay structures that you can use at your practice. The first pay structure that we're going to talk about today is the 40-60 split. This is where the therapist receives 40% of that reimbursement rate, while the practice receives 60% of that reimbursement rate. This type of pay structure is ideal for practices that don't take insurance and are solely out of pocket. Because insurance companies can vary in how much they reimburse us, it then can become inconsistent with this 40-60 split. The next pay structure that we're going to talk about today is salary positions. This is a great opportunity for individuals who have been with you for a while, who are looking to advance in leadership roles at your practice, such as a clinical director, a supervisor, or an operations manager. The downside to having someone on salary is that during slow periods at your practice, this can become costly. The last pay structure that we're going to talk about today is fee for service or hourly pay. This is when your employee gets paid for that hour that they're seeing that client. This aligns directly with revenue at your practice, and it helps you not only pay that clinician, but also then get reimbursed for that time to go back into your business. Unfortunately, some of the downside for the hourly pay is that it can be inconsistent during cancellations or slower periods at your practice. Now that we know how to set up your new hire, either a W-2 employee or a 1099 contractor, and you figured out what pay structure works best for your practice, now let's talk a little bit about where to find qualified candidates. The following platforms that I'll be talking about are absolutely free and oftentimes forgotten by busy business owners, but they are called social media platforms. The first one I want to mention is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social media platform that connects you to other professionals. LinkedIn also has a free job posting that you can use on their platform that helps you market and find new candidates. But most of our candidates are on social media. It can be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, making sure that you're using these free platforms to your advantage to let people know about your business, but also to let new graduates and new hires know that you're out there and that you're looking for candidates. This could be very, very helpful, and I found over the years that many clients and graduates, as well as new hires, find us on social media platforms and end up following us and contacting us later down the road once they are ready to apply. Another great source where you can find qualified candidates are job platforms. Platforms such as Indeed.com, Jobs.com, or iHireMentalHealth.com could be great resources to help you find these qualified candidates. I do recommend trying the free trials and the non-sponsored postings when you first start, but as you continue to build and you're able to invest a little bit more in the hiring process, I do recommend you paying for some of this additional sponsorship or visibility on these platforms so that candidates can find you. The other thing I want to mention here, which we found to be very helpful, is the job description. Making sure that you're using keywords in the job description to attract the right people, and also putting a lot more passion and detail in the job description. Because a lot of candidates, they're seeing a lot of the same types of information: competitive pay, flexible schedule. Make yourself stand out, and one way to do that is through the job description. The last resource that I want to share with you that's helped us find qualified candidates is affiliations with different universities in your area. This has helped us find graduate interns that we've been able to bring on board, train, and supervise for almost a year, and then help us transition them seamlessly into our group practice once they have graduated and have gotten their license. Quick tip: be mindful when hiring friends and family. It can be harder to maintain boundaries and could potentially lead to personal conflicts. Next, I'm going to be talking about interviewing and selection. I'm going to be sharing some tips that have helped us find the right candidates. The first tip I'm going to share is having 2 separate rounds of interviews involving 2 different team members. This helps you get different perspectives on this candidate that you're hiring. The next tip is having a structured questionnaire that helps you stay consistent and allows fairness throughout the candidates that you're interviewing. The other thing that we do is we check for professional references, and we also verify license to make sure that this candidate is qualified to do this position. And lastly, during the interview process, we also discuss the job, the role, their responsibilities, and our expectations to ensure that this candidate is clear on what they're getting into. Quick tip: qualities to look for in your new hires: openness to learning, passion for helping others, enthusiasm to get started, and open and clear communication. Now that you've found, interviewed, and hired your new candidate, the next step is getting them onboarded, trained, and credentialed with your practice. Next, we're going to be talking about onboarding, specifically training and credentialing. Before your new hire starts, here are a few checks to do. Number 1 is a thorough background check. You want to make sure you check both federal and state backgrounds. This could be done through a third-party platform such as Identigo, or you can contact your payroll company to see if they can do it for you as well. Next, you want to check their license. We use a state online platform to verify their license to make sure that they're active, in good standing, and there's no complaints that have been put against that license. And lastly, malpractice insurance. We have malpractice insurance for our entire group. However, we still ask that our new hires have individual malpractice insurance to cover them. Once you've done all your verification and checks, the next is to set them up for orientation. This could be about a week or 2-week process where you bring them in to get them set up in the systems, make sure they're going over the policies for your practice, and what the expectations are for your client's care. This is crucial and something that we've learned. If we put time and effort in the orientation process, it can save us time and money later down the road. A lot of businesses skip over this step because of the cost that it does for a practice. However, in New Jersey, you are able to start them at a lower rate during this orientation process and then increase it once they actually start seeing clients. So keep that in mind. The next thing we do is we set them up to shadow some of our senior clinicians. This allows a new hire to ask questions, see interventions and techniques, and get more insight into your role and your position here. Lastly, what we do is we set up a mock initial intake session. This is where we have the new hires practice what that initial session will look like and go over some of those initial paperworks so they feel more confident before they start with their new clients. Next, we're going to be talking about credentialing. I'm going to create a separate video to go over this process in more detail. If you've hired someone who's fully licensed, so a licensed professional counselor or an LPC, or a licensed clinical social worker, an LCSW, and they've never been credentialed before with any insurance, then it can take anywhere between 90 to 120 days to get them credentialed. This process should start very quickly as soon as you hire them in order to get them credentialed and seeing and accepting clients with that insurance. If you've hired a clinician who's not fully licensed yet and who needs a supervisor, so an LAC, a licensed associate counselor, or an LSW, a licensed social worker, then you want to set them up with a supervisor that has their ACS or an approved clinical supervisor certificate. This is very important, and you need to make sure this is done right away before they even start seeing clients. Your supervisor also is responsible to send over a form to the state to make sure that that supervisor is approved by the state and able to sign off on those clinical hours. Lastly, during the onboarding process, we're going to talk about the 90-day probationary period. During this period, you're going to assess if it's a good cultural fit, how their clinical skills are developing, how is their documentation, and if they are meeting all the client care expectations that you have for your new hires at your practice. During this 90-day probationary period, do check-ins at the 30-day mark, the 60-day mark, and the 90-day mark to make sure that you are properly assessing this new hire's progression and development. During this time, if there is an issue that arises, we encourage you to address it right away. Have a meeting with this new hire, address the incident, make sure you document it, and make sure that you're also talking about what are steps to take to ensure that they're correcting these mistakes. After the 90-day period, if this new hire is a great fit for you, talk about raises, potential leadership roles, and other positions that can open up for them as they progress in your practice. So far, we've explored how to find the right candidate, hiring them, and onboarding them correctly. Now let's talk about what do we do if it's not the right fit. Let's explore common reasons for termination. Some common reasons include clinical and ethical violations, which may look like breaches in confidentiality, inappropriate boundaries with clients, failure to follow ethical guidelines, or inappropriate record keeping. Another common reason for termination is poor documentation or client care. This could look like consistent failure to submit timely and accurate notes, also missing essential information needed from the insurance or legal standards, or constant complaints about the quality of care from our client. Lastly, another very common reason for termination is toxic workplace behavior. This could look like persistent negativity that affects the team's morale, disrespect towards clients or colleagues, or failure to adhere to company's policies, gossiping, bullying, or any other disruptive conduct. Lastly, we're going to talk about termination steps. During this time frame, make sure that you're documenting any performance issues, specific dates, incidences, and interventions that you try to resolve these issues. Provide clear and verbal warnings whenever possible. Make sure during this time frame you're being direct, professional, and clear, and outlining the reasons as to why they're being terminated, as well as the next steps. Lastly, make sure that you have a checklist of all the things you need to obtain before their last day. This could include final hours for their final check. This could also include final client paperwork, notes that may still need to be submitted, as well as closing them out from any systems, contracts, and ensuring that clients are transitioned effectively. Finally, let's talk about how to keep your staff happy. Some tips that I would give is be genuine with your support and communication. This can go a long way in helping your clinicians feel like they're in an environment where they can grow. Another thing is to be honest and transparent with your goals and growth in the business. When we first started, we didn't offer much at the beginning, but I always communicated with my staff where I wanted to take the business and what opportunities I eventually wanted to have for them. Lastly, provide growth opportunities for them, whether it's in trainings, supervision, or even putting them in different leadership roles where they can develop and grow as a clinician. Just to recap, we learned today about hiring in a structured and professional way. We also discussed the onboarding process and the importance of having a system. And lastly, we discussed how to handle termination professionally. Thank you so much for staying tuned until the very end of this video. If you have any comments or questions, make sure to share them below. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on our newest videos. Until next time, friends, take care.